Have any of you out there ever thought about writing a book and wondered what steps are involved in writing a book? Whew, until I actually got started, I had no idea what I was in for. Over the last 4 years, I wrote a book about my nomad journey. Many of you are already familiar or have purchased the book, Rut to Revival, A Gypsy Soul Nomad Journey. Thank you for your support and beautiful reviews. Today, I'd like to go through the steps involved in writing a book, just in case you're curious or thinking about writing your own story. So, hope you'll join me. Thank you all for being here. Today I have 25 steps written down that I did to write my book and take it all the way to publication. Going to quickly go through these steps, and I do have notes, so I will be looking off to the side just to let you know everything that was involved in writing Rut to Revival. So with no further ado, number one is I started blogging in late 2018, 2019, early 2000, when I first hit the road. I opened up an account with WordPress in sereneandsimplelife.com you can go to, and started blogging. I figured this would be great reference material, giving me a chronological sense of things that I did throughout the years. And it was something to do. It was just something just like a journal, it was something to keep track of things. And I actually printed out a lot of these blogs so that I could reference them when I was writing my book. I'm going to show you little reference materials that I have along the way. This is titled Where to Go and What to Do, and this was February 2019. And I have pictures with it. And then another one here, A Nomadic Lifestyle, A Gypsy Soul. I wrote at the end that this was going to end the series. So, and I've got the Gypsy Soul bracelet. Just some of my blogging. So that's how I started. I really didn't know for sure if I was going to be writing a book, but I kind of had in the back of my mind that I would. Number two is I brainstormed titles. They say you need a working title when you start a book. And mine was pretty much from the beginning, I think. I couldn't find the piece of paper. I like to write things down on paper. Rut to Revival, A Serene and Simple Life Journey. I figured, hey, why not just keep with the channel? And Rut to Revival, I think, was after I played with quite a few words. I came up with that. The next thing I did, number three, was I composed a rough draft of chapter titles, showing you, just so you can see the real deal here. A New Beginnings, Off the Treadmill, The Backstory, Coming Full Circle, Finding a New Tribe, The What If Syndrome, Minimalization and Organization, Living Life Large, In the Moment, Gratitude Changes Everything. A lot of what I'm all about here, and so I'm sure a lot of these titles came from the blogs, but this was some working chapter titles to keep a sense of my writing. One thing that I did differently this time around than the first book that I wrote, which was 20 some years ago, Rising from the Ruins, A Single Mom Takes Flight, is I wrote that book within 11 months. And when I sat down to write, I wrote it all the way through. This one was composed over the course of, like I said, almost 4 years. So quite a bit of difference in the writing style to get to publication. In 2020, 2021, I actually started the book. I did a lot of copy paste for a draft. I just wanted to feel some sense of getting it done. So I took some of my blogs and I copy pasted in some chronological order, and then I was going to go back and fill in where I needed to. I did my entire book on my iPhone, if you can believe that. I didn't open up my laptop and write. I was writing on my phone in Google Docs. Go figure. And there were many locations where I would find the creative juices flowing, especially near water. There was one particular time where I know I did a lot of writing. That was in Junction, Texas. I was there for 2 or 3 nights, just camping near the water. It was very, very cool. And water inspires me and gives me a lot of creativity. So I wrote there. I also wrote in Washington at Sandy's place when it was nice and quiet and out in the big open land that she owned. I also wrote at rest areas too. There was just times when I felt the creativity more than other times, and I would just pick up the phone and just start writing. So fast forward now, after all those years of writing, and I include the blogging as part of the writing, not just starting the book back into, is I put out there on my channel that I was looking for an editor and had no idea what I would be paying. I actually, someone sent me an email about an awesome editor, quite expensive, and I texted her or emailed her. And then lo and behold, one of you beautiful people emailed me and said that you would be glad to help me with editing. So she volunteered her services and we met. But after meeting one another and starting to work together, the timing wasn't good for her, and I was feeling a lot of stress, so it didn't work out. I put aside, and this is step number 5, but I put aside looking for an editor for 3 months because I knew I was moving into my tiny cabin, so I needed to really put the book aside and give it a break. And then in January, I reached out to someone who I think had first reached out to me, and she had told me she was a professional editor. And she emailed me that she would be happy to edit my book, that she was going to gift me that. Just so humbled and grateful. Thank you, Erin. She said I had provided her a lot of good, and she would like to give back to me. So we started working together for 9 months, off and on. It wasn't like every single week. She was traveling a lot, and she would do editing and then send it to me in Google Docs, which I did show you some videos on that, where I would approve all of her edits, and then she would keep moving forward with the book. And after 9 months, we came to a place that it felt like the book was done. And so she had to get on to other things after giving me so much of her time. And after we parted, and this was all through emails, a couple phone calls, mostly just texting or, her letting me know that she was sending me the document to go over the edits. And of course, every edit that she did made like perfect sense. I didn't really need to approve or disapprove anything, but that's part of the agreement. So my heart and God told me that I was not done writing. And here I am now. I'm without an editor. So what on earth am I going to do? Because I'm not a writer. I know how to talk. God knows you all know that, but I'm not a writer in the sense of knowing how to put sentence structure together. So over the next month and a half, I started rereading my manuscript. Now, by now, I have printed the manuscript probably 2 or 3 times. Took it to UPS, and they would print it for like 10 cents a copy. So we're talking anywhere between $15, $20 to get my manuscript printed each time. And I found a lot of things that I needed to work on. And so number 6 was working with Erin, the editor. Number 7 was designing my cover, and I designed it on Canva. She didn't even recommend that. I just knew that Canva was out there, and she's like, "Oh, that's awesome. We use Canva in her workspace." And so she gave me feedback. She told me she loved the cover, and so I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." And then number 8 was I knew that I wasn't done writing. So I got into several things throughout the course of those 6 months or 6 weeks. And one of them had surfaced when I was working with Erin, and that was an overuse of words. She was able to search like how many times I use SUV, how many times I use home, how many times I use journey, and on and on. And that just took me down a very long rabbit trail of looking at overused words. So for a week or two, it kind of like haunted me in the middle of the night. How many times I used blessing, delightful, enjoy. It just goes on. And I made love 55 times. So I made lists and lists on these little pieces of paper, as you can see, of how many times I searched the words. Didn't even know you could do that. And I started Googling for what's a different word for love, what's a different word for delightful, what's a different word for scenic, on and on. I probably, before I was done, found about 40, 50 different words that I needed to change the word in the book so that I wasn't continually overusing words. Another thing that came up is that I needed to embellish my story. Part of me works with a sense of urgency, and I like to get things done. Even if they are not 100% complete, I get to a place where I've just got to be done. And I'm a perfectionist, but I'm also, I get up to a place where this is it, like I can't do anymore. And the more I reread my story, the more I realized that I had to embellish with some further creative writing. And I know that was God showing me, Linda, you've got gaps here and you've got to fill in the gaps. And there was times I mentioned to Erin, and she was doing editing. She wasn't doing like a ghost writing, like my first book. He took my manuscript and then he ghost wrote it. That's different than editing and copy editing. So I asked her, is the story creative enough? Am I using enough, descriptive words? And she thought it was fine, but the more I dug in, it wasn't fine to me. And so I started to look for embellishments, like describing the beach. I didn't put enough effort into it on the front end to take the time to describe a beach in a way that would be fun and exciting for the reader. I just wrote like sandy beach for an example, or puffy clouds. Later on, I dug into that and I wrote wispy clouds. If I had not Googled for different words, I would have never come up with wispy. And then things like the beach, shimmering waves of the ocean that are clear and blue, mirror the rays of the hot sun. The refreshing breeze that emanates from the ocean waters is divine. I mean, that's not in my mind about writing. So I went through places that I love, especially waves and the ocean and the beach, and I tried to do some descriptive writing without plagiarizing. I didn't take the words that I found. I just kind of tried to work around it and do more embellishing. So I went on from that into doing more fillers. Revisiting my blogs from the sereneandsimplelife.com and finding out where I was missing some pieces and what information I wasn't giving enough of, that I had not elaborated on enough. And I'm was very insecure about my writing abilities. I knew that they weren't good, and I needed to research extensively on the use of commas, prepositions, article usage, joining words, missing verbs, subject-verb agreements. I'm looking at my notes. Spelling, correct pronoun usage, redundant words, correct word choice, changing forms of verbs from like was and were, changing a noun form, removing phrases. I mean, it goes on. And also something that struck me is on Google Docs, there is Grammarly, and it shows you where there are mistakes. And that popped up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, how many mistakes I had made. And now, mind you, 90% of the book had already been edited perfectly. And I didn't want to put the last 10% or 5% into the book that showed the difference. So I really needed to research and go back to English class so that I could get it right. And I absolutely did not feel comfortable in calling the editor again, who had gifted me all her time and months, to say, hey, I've got a couple more chapters, because she let me know that she was moving on into another project, and she had to be done also, which was very, very understandable. So the last 10%, 5%, I needed to get it right. A side note, I would sleep on these kinds of things for a few days. I had to step away from it, because when you're writing, you may know this already, but you get so close to it, you can't see what you need to see. And Erin even said to me, Linda, the best writers in the world still need an editor, because you're too close to it. So, not to belabor that anymore. Number 9 is I had lots and lots of links, and I needed to go through and I needed to check links. Oh, before we go any further here, notes from my blogs. This is like scribble scratch. I mean, look how crazy that is. Just lots and lots of things like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. And then after I would incorporate these fillers, I would scratch it out. So this was really a lot of crazy making. And then we go into fillers, where I needed to add a little bit more on faith over fear, and that came from my blog. And things like a new chapter that the editor hadn't seen was 5 different offices. I didn't realize, but people who are nomads, they want to know where they can work. So I did a whole chapter on my offices. I had a lot of rearranging and getting things in a better sequential order. Even though I had gotten the stamp of approval from Erin, I felt like it could be better. And so I took that task on. Here is notes where I'm going through all the different things that needed to be changes with this, that, was, were, and oh my gosh, so many things. Then number 10 is, if I think I already mentioned that, is the links. And here I have my page full of, I wrote down every single link. I think I have 173 links, and I double checked them. 155, 166, so there's more than that. So at least 170 links in the book that you can get in the ebook. So I wrote them all down by title and then cross-referenced them to make sure that the title was correct and that the link was working. So that was really awesome. The formatter also told me later on that she has a professional link checker. So you can be assured that in the ebook, the links are all working. And then after I finished checking the links, I contacted 2 formatters that Erin had given me names for. I asked them the cost, everything. The one reference came back and said, I don't edit books. So I thought, well, that's really weird. So maybe it was just meant to be to go with Heather. And so that's what I did. I contacted her, and she said she would be happy to do, and gave me her time frame and her cost. And on we went into knowing that I had secured a formatter. So then the next thing I did was, after the formatter number 10, is I started thinking about putting photos in my book. And I'm thinking, wow, my journey is so visual that things like, as silly as seeing the potty, if you don't know what that looks like and how that all folds up, I'm like, I need to put that in there. And then, some fun of my travels and some of the everyday things, seeing the yard sales that I did. I mean, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and seeing is believing. So I have 153 photos in the book. That's pretty cool. So from the photos, you know, and I made a list of subjects. I mean, I literally said, okay, what kind of things do I want to put in my book? What kind of subjects? And I had lots and lots of notes on, I want to include the tray table that I hook to my steering wheel. I want to put a picture of Andy at nighttime, a picture of my clam, some Say It, Display It product when I'm working. Just so many things that I thought of in my brain, and I just started like brainstorming what kind of pictures do I want in the book. So that took me a long ways too. And here is the thing where I started working on all the different pictures. And after I had narrowed it down from thousands and thousands of photos in different folders on my external hard drive, I went back and I wrote down all the pictures that I had chosen, and I needed to put placeholders inside the PDF that Erin had given me, that my working PDF, where I was embellishing and finding those overused words and adding fillers and finding places where I was redundant and getting things in a better order. I used that PDF, and that's where I put my placeholders for all the pictures, because I knew that the editor, she told me in our back and forth, just put placeholders where all the pictures are going to go, and then she would insert them. So with that, then I started writing, let me see, after the photos, I wrote some additional pieces that needed to go into the book, like the offices for one. Just some things where I needed to make things more clear, more concise, just more work that should have been done on the front end, and I was picking it up on the back end. Let's just say that. Then I knew that I needed to write about the author and the prologue and the epilogue. And I Googled how to for that. How do you do that? And more notes. Here's something where I wrote about the author and something I found out. It needs to be a brief bio, short, punchy sentences that gets everything across and hooks the reader. It's a short paragraph or two with biographical data, and add a personal touch that makes you more relatable to your audience, and notes about your interests and hobbies, etc. And then you can put in credentials, awards that make you an authority on the subject, demonstrate your area of expertise, why you are qualified to write, and it's a great way to gain credibility. So I learned all those things as I was Googling how do you write about author. And then I started writing on regular notebook paper before I added it to the PDF. Number 13 is I prayed a lot. And when all was said and done, after the pictures and after the author and the epilogue and the prologue, I said to myself, this is it. This is it. It is time to send those working files from Erin to the formatter, her name, Heather. I'm going to leave you with that. We're going to pick this up again. So this is part 1. I hope you've gleaned a lot of good information from this, and that you will consider writing your own book. They say we all have a story and don't die with a book still inside of you. So stay tuned for part 2 as I send it off to the formatter, and more exciting things to come. Blessings in your day, and joy in all of your writing and in your journey.